Hey everyone. So, my name is Marcus. I'm just one of the guys in Aotearoa 350. And I heard about Aotearoa 350 back when the parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere was under 400. Not 350, but it hadn't been that since 1987 or something. But the maximum safe amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, of course, being 350 parts per million. As of June this year, we're up to, unfortunately, up to 416.9. Now, I was concerned enough, even then, to want to, find out more. So I read the emails, attended a public seminar organised by Aotearoa 350 and decided to join. And I've stayed with them ever since because I have to do something, I have to stand up for what I believe in somehow, and they're a global organisation that have a lot of passionate and skilled people in them. And I like the principles of respect and science-based decision-making that I see. Now, 350.org, the global movement, has traditionally been big on divestment from fossil fuels, which means trying to get anyone and everyone, especially institutions that wield power and influence, to take their investments out of the fossil fuel industry. The reasoning, of course, is that the climate change is going to harm all life on the planet. It's caused mainly by burning fossil fuels, which is dumb because we have alternatives and can develop even better ones if we really put our minds to it. So it's really just simple maths. If no one agrees to lend the fossil fuel industry or invest in it, then they've lost their social licence to operate, and they're going to find it increasingly difficult to operate without that external financial backing. So we've, at 350, we've worked on many campaigns to achieve our divestment goals, and we've had to sort of acknowledge our hurdles as well, hurdles I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar as well. So, for example, fossil fuel use is just entrenched in society at present. Conservative estimates put US direct subsidies to the fossil fuel industry at roughly $20 billion per year. And that's with 20% currently allocated to coal, 80% roughly to natural gas and crude oil. EU subsidies are limited to, or estimated to total about 55 billion euros annually. Also, there are wealthy and powerful figures who support the fossil fuel industry. And fossil fuel companies have a lot of money. They've spent over $2 billion trying to kill climate laws, and that's about 10 times the amount that environmental groups have spent lobbying. But we can tackle these hurdles here, even here in Aotearoa. We keep pushing the decision makers, we keep campaigning, educating the public why this is important, how urgent it is. And we've had our wins. So, for example, the most recent being our work with getting Kiwibank to put out a no investing in or lending to fossil fuel companies policy, which was just announced the other day. So that's really awesome. Start thinking about moving over to them. So how do we do it? So we chose to work with Kiwibank because they're a New Zealand-owned bank, and so naturally more interested in doing what Kiwis want than the Aussie-owned banks. And they're big enough for this policy to actually mean something. Encourage the banks, other banks, to look over their shoulders and get nervous. Will we lose market share unless we go down this track too? That kind of thing. And how do we do it? Well, it's people. We've got a couple of full-time staff in New Zealand, and they've been invaluable in research, bringing all the regional branches together, initiating those high-level conversations, helping us all in New Zealand as a team with communication, tech, encouraging us to develop and stick to strong principles of respect. They encourage us to use and develop our skills, where we can and where we want to. And it's just regular encouragement as well, because this sort of, and sure many of you know, sort of campaigning and all that kind of thing, it can take it out of you. So encouragement and support, looking after yourself is really important. Additionally, we have a board whose years of experience and passion and contacts been of immense value when planning, where we can generate value and get the job done. Also, we just have tons of ordinary grassroots volunteers, such as myself. Sometimes all a volunteer can do is just read emails and perhaps come to a demonstration once every year or two, and that's fine. Sometimes they want to join little branches and up in another country and then get together to work on, weekly discussions on upcoming campaigns and work the logistics of how they're going to happen, but leadership making it actually happen, of course. So with Kiwi Bank, what we did is we did like call jams. So we spent evenings, eating pizza, calling Kiwi Bank contact centre and asked them if they had a fossil fuel policy, finding they did not have one, ask them when are you going to get one, get their staff in the contact centre talking, We did a walk through town to the bucket fountain where we gave a public talk about huge amounts and the various Aussie banks were lending to the fossil fuel industry and staged a race between the banks to see who was getting closest to putting out that policy that we wanted. We got bunches of us together just up and down the country, just going into Kiwi Bank at lunch, in various branches. And then we would line up and ask them, hey, you guys, what's your fossil fuel policy? Don't know? Okay, I'll just wait. And it gets people talking, gets a bit of publicity. You keep up the pressure and obviously those high-level conversations with the bigwigs obviously helps as well. So the next campaign, just fossil fuels create climate change, which has proven negative health outcomes as we've been talking about today. And yet there's an organisation in New Zealand that invests a lot of money in fossil fuels, contrary to its guiding principle of preventing harm. Who? ACC. They have a board member with a clear conflict of interest with regards to fossil fuel investment and appear to be paying more attention to their advice than to ACC's guiding principle of preventing injury to Kiwis. Climate change will cause a lot of injury to us, so we think it's time for them to back away from fossil fuels as fast as they can. Anyway, if you're interested in finding out more, check out 350.org.nz or our Facebook page, or come and tap me on the shoulder. Let me finish up with our report.
Kia ora koutou, ko Aaron Pakaroho. It's great to be here at this marae on this whenua with you all. And just to acknowledge the hard work of Marcus and all volunteers that are part of 350 Aotearoa and all volunteers here and everywhere that really do the hard work of getting this stuff done. I'm on the board of 350 Aotearoa, and so just wanted to add a couple of one major perspective around solutions around climate change, and that is climate justice is a solution into itself. And that means, as a predominantly Pākehā-oriented movement, the climate movement, we need to do work to make space for other ways of thinking and doing. We often have supporters who might be quite ignorant and /racist. So we have work to do within our own support base as mainly Pākehā based, and to create space for other ways of organising. I was involved 10 years ago for several years in setting up the Pacific Climate Warriors, and I think that was an amazing journey. And that was a lot, I was going to the Pacific a lot, connecting with young Pacific Islanders, and that was about confronting those structural, in the history of colonisation and imperialism. And that, I think, by doing that head-on at that time in the starting point, created the space for the Pacific Climate Warriors to step strongly into something that is, I think, claiming a cultural renaissance in the Pacific. And I think just to close off and reflect, for myself, it's a practice. Climate justice is a practice. It's something I find hard to do year on year, but to build those relationships and make space for other ways of doing and thinking, and just remember that I'm ignorant in lots of ways as well. So kia ora koutou.
Tēnā kōrua. Thank you so much, Aaron and Marcus. Kia ora.